Turkey is heading towards a critical set of elections by the latest June 2023. And this is likely to be a very competitive race with a prospect of political change, given that there are a number of candidates that today poll better than the current president, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Of course, we don't know the outcome, but this is quite unprecedented for the Turkish political system. And the fundamental reason why support for Erdoğan and his ruling coalition has been dwindling is essentially has to do with the economic downturn that the country has been experiencing. And that's going to be the main fundamental dynamic that will ultimately determine the outcome of the elections in Turkey.
The Turkish political opposition agree on three main priorities. The first has to do with the country's Western vocation. While they recognize the need for Turkey to have healthy, constructive relations with countries like Russia and China, they also firmly believe that Turkey is and should be a part of the Western world. Hence, they believe that the country needs to strengthen its NATO identity and rekindle its relationship with the European Union and European nations at large. The second priority they advocate flows from this worldview, which is that the rule of law in Turkey needs to be enhanced. They believe that a domestic reform process that focuses on democratic standards needs to be put into action. And their third priority is of something of structural nature. They believe that the conduct of Turkish foreign policy needs to have the foreign ministry at the center, and that individual-based decision-making should not be a part of the way in which foreign policy is conducted.
Now, we have co-authored this study looking at how Turkish foreign policy may change if there is a political change in Turkey after the 2023 elections. But obviously, there are some difficulties in extrapolating because there may be some fundamental barriers to how this thinking may actually translate into real-world policy choices. One is that if there is a political change, the governance structure is likely to be much more complicated compared to today, with a president that is going to be supported by a coalition of parties, and that will necessarily involve a number of different frictions at the level of governance. Secondly, Parliament may or may not be controlled by the party of the president. That will also trigger a number of difficulties going forward. And thirdly, today we don't even know who the candidate shall be on the side of the opposition. So his personal choices will also have implications about the direction of foreign policy. And finally, the new government, even though some of the policy choices that they've expressed in this paper are quite open, nonetheless, they will need to rule in a country where public opinion has been exposed to a number of narratives about Turkey's position in the world. There's an increased degree of anti-Western thought, and they will need to address that as well as they try to implement their foreign policy choices, as you know, that we have tried to summarize in this research.